This is basically my agenda for this evening's presentation. And we will talk about the Snowmaking Committee and the mission statement for snowmaking, visit the snowmaking trails, talk about the history of snowmaking and the timeline, talk a little bit about how the snowmaking system is operated, visit snowmaking finances, since this doesn't happen for free, and then talk about our exciting new additions for 2020, the new winter recreation storage building and the new PISTEN 100F Snowcat. So here we go. First of all, looking at the snowmaking is operated as a committee of the Friends of Lapham Peak. It is responsible, the committee is responsible for the development, operation, and maintenance of the snowmaking system. Our committee chairperson, Ann Randall, oversees all things snowmaking. She took over for Sandy Sugden, who basically got us kicked off in the snowmaking committee department and is still actively involved. But the more active members are listed right now, the 2020 active committee members, Beadle, Jim Bostrom, and the rest of the happy crew there are the ones who are meeting on a bi-weekly basis to make snowmaking happen. And the snowmaking mission statement is simply, it's not very simple, it's provide high quality, reliable cross-country skiing on man-made snow for at least 85 days each season with daily condition updates. And to facilitate a healthy lifestyle, community involvement, and outdoor physical activity for skiers of all ages and abilities. And I would note that that 85-day mark that I listed there, we have achieved that for the last 2 years. So, and that's about the time we came up with this mission statement. So, Snowmaking Trails 2020, there are 2.4 kilometers of snowmaking trails. They're shown here as being in sort of two main loop groupings, the phase 2 trails, about 1.2 kilometers, and the phase 3 in the wood trails, another 1.1 kilometers, and then some little interconnecting things, plus the instruction area. The outer loop going around, starting at the trailhead and going around the outside of phase 3, back around to get into the field and coming here is about 1 mile. And the vertical climb from the trailhead from here to about out here at the high point is about 75 feet. So if you happen to be signed up for the Berkey or the Quartalopet or even the Prince Hakon and decide you want to do it virtually, you could come out to Lapham Peak come February 23rd, and you could do, if you were to do the Berkey, you could do 30 laps of this outside loop, and that would be your Berkey. Anyway, Snowmaking System 2020 is comprised of the Snowmaking Pumping System and Pump House, a 2 million gallon pond and 100 gallons per minute well to supply water to the pond, 6 POLECAT snow guns, 33 hydrants and 32 power pedestals, 7,200 feet of water pipe and 8,900 feet of electric wire, and the new recreational storage building, winter recreational storage building, and PISTEN 100. So these components make up the pieces that we use to make the snow out of the dehydrated water. So the snowmaking strategic plan looking forward, future capital improvements include an additional SMI snow gun, because the system is really set up to run 7 guns, a future phase 4 piping and electrical extension, and then that would give us a total of 3 kilometers of snowmaking trails, providing all the options anyone would be interested in, from wide open flat spaces to challenging uphills and downhills. So if we looked at what phase 4 would be, it would take you from the edges of phase 3 here, it would take you up the legendary 2-tier hill and then back down Hoot Owl Hill to reconnect with the Magic Carpet Ride. And that would add another 0.68 kilometers. You would have an outer loop of approximately 1.3 miles. So if you went out there, you could do that as many times as you want to. Of course, it's hard. And a vertical climb now from the trailhead here to out here of 160 feet. That's adding 85 additional feet from what we had before. So we would have hills, I can tell you that much. A little history and timeline for the snowmaking system. Originally conceived in 2004, The first components were put in 2005. 2006 involved the pond construction. 2008 and 2010 saw some piping installed. New pumping system was installed in 2014. Phase 3 work was done between 2016 and 2019, and now in 2020, the winter recreation storage building and PISTEN Belay 100. 2004, Ed Music and Paul Sangren got together and they said, you know, we're having some tough seasons out at Lapham Peak, and why don't we try some man-made snow on the trails? And they bought a snow gun. There it is, one of them anyway. They didn't buy it. I'm sorry, they think they got it given to them from Peninsula State Park, and they brought it down to the park, and that began what became a now 16-year project. So in 2005, they went out and they drilled a well to get water because we didn't have a pond yet. They put in some electric lines. Here we have Snowcat, not Snowcat, but backhoe operator Paul Sangren digging the trenches for the piping. And then we built the pump house too, though we didn't have a pump yet to put into it. And that first winter then, Ed Music and Sean Becker went out with a swimming pool and took water from the well, put the water into the swimming pool, let it cool down a little bit, and then hooked up the snow gun to it and made a pile of snow. And that was the beginning of snowmaking. So that wasn't going to go very far, though, one pile of snow. So we built a pond in 2006. We call it the Lupo, the John Lupo pond, and then a snowmaking pump was put in the pond. Here we have our golden shovel moment. Here is John Lupo with Ed and myself. We got somebody from Waukesha County, Lapham, to come out there. I think he was a reluctant participant. And the guys from Hare Excavating who dug the pond. You can see in the lower left-hand corner here, the pond, while it's fully excavated, was filling with water already. And that's because the pond is completely supplied with water from natural groundwater conditions out there in the lower part of the park. There really is no significant surface runoff that comes to the pond itself. This upper right-hand corner picture shows an intake and a wet well for what will eventually be the snowmaking pump, which sits right on top of this manhole here. And there was the first jury-rigged pump. We got a pump through Joe Stuber, and they worked out this Rube Goldberg setup to start pumping water out to make snow. So there still was no piping, so it just had to be connected to some snow guns that were set up outside and then pushed around. So in 2008, we began the installation of the piping here. Here's a first set of pipe. It's a 50 feet long pieces of pipe, 6-inch diameter, high density polyethylene, wall thickness of about 1 inch, able to withstand about 300 PSI. At the time we did the initial project, DNR was really very active, and here's we have Jay Apps and Brian Fitzpatrick, I should say, who were actually running the fusing machine. They've been trained in how to fuse the pieces of pipe together. You basically push the pieces of pipe together, heat them up like a little waffle iron, and then they stick together, and that joint is stronger than the pipe itself. We dug a big long trench to put the pipe into and then hooked it up to the pumping station itself, and we now had piping. We already had wire, so we were ready to make snow on about half a kilometer's worth of trail. So phase 2, additional pictures anyway as we went through phase 2 here. We have Paul is out there working again, putting the insulation on the pipe as it's going into the pump house. There were some trenches in the phase 2 area which were really hard to work with. We had to put the pipe, basically after we dug the trench and filled with water, so you had to put the pipe into the water after it had been fused. Here's a typical installation that shows how the hydrant sits on top of the pipe and comes up. And then there was a T here for future phase 3. Sometimes we actually bedded the pipe in stone, but mostly we just set it on the bottom of the trench. 2014, we brought in a new pumping system for the snowmaking system here. The pumping system was a big long piece that stuck down to that manhole. That pump system cost about $65,000. Here's the whole pump and apparatus, and then this shows it like an operation here. It's doing 274 gallons per minute, and a totalizer that shows how many gallons is pumped out to this point. The pumping system is able to drive about 7 snow guns, 400 gallons per minute, 300 psi, and what is known as 700 feet of total dynamic head. So it is capable of pushing water all the way to the top of future phase 4 and supplying snow guns in that area. 2016 saw a sort of things begin to change in the way the snowmaking system was operated and constructed. Phase 3A, into the woods, involved installation of pipe connecting to the phase 2 system and up magic carpet ride through the woods here, and then up what is tail end hill, where they connected together right at this point, I might note. And in this case, Friends of Lapham Peak started to take a more active role in the construction of the system, as we got the legendary Beetle to come out and operate an excavator, which he borrowed from Super Excavators, his former employer, and to dig the trench, and volunteers installed this pipe for the first time. So it was sort of really a sea change in how things were being done, as opposed to DNR taking responsibility for it. Now, Friends of Lapham Peak were taking more responsibility for it. In 2018, we developed an agreement with the DNR called the Land Use Agreement, which really defined the responsibilities for operating, maintaining, and constructing the snowmaking system, and put more responsibility on DNR, on the Fringe, I should say. And so that allowed us to begin construction of the remainders of the phase 3 loop up through the woods. It's just a couple pictures of the operation here, where you would pull the whole fuse pipe along the trench through the woods and connect up to a hydrant here. Here's a hydrant coming off to the side. The pipe is now coming down the middle of the trail because it's in the woods, and then a hydrant comes off to the side. At one point, we could not figure out why the lights, because we would locate the lightings for the lights, and they all went zigzagging all over the place. And we found out later because there was this giant boulder in the middle of the trail. You could see that boulder is parked along the trail very near the high point. If you go out there, the pipe was fused in the trench in various segments here. And there's the fusing machine down in the mud, putting together 2 pieces of pipe to complete the whole system. So another couple of quick pictures from the phase 3 construction. It also involved bringing in the wire that was necessary to connect up to the pedestals. The pedestals providing the power that the snow guns need. And this motley crew here then posed for a picture after the completion of phase 3B, snowmaking piping installation in the fall of 2018. So while that was all going on, there was additional purchases being made as we updated the snow gun fleet. We got rid of you saw the original snow gun we got from Peninsula, and we had a whole series of those. We got people gave them to us like they never wanted to use them or see them again. And there was a reason for that. It was because they made crummy snow, and they could throw ice off, and the mice would eat all the electronics, and they burst into flames. So we got rid of those. And bought the new SMI POLECAT snow guns, and we have 6 of those right now. They're not a fan gun; it's a barrel gun, and you can see that they have the water shoots out of little jets at the very ends of them, and there's a fan in the back that accelerates it, and then you of course plug it in, and you plug the water into it too. So we now have 6 of these SMI POLECAT snow guns. Operating the snowmaking system does not happen by itself. It takes a lot of volunteers, a fair amount of time in less than ideal conditions to make the snow that we enjoy skiing on from mid-December to mid-March. Man-made snow itself is 6 times denser than natural snow, which is why it lasts so long compared to what comes out of the sky. So that what that's telling you is if you have 10 inches of natural snow, that means you end up with 1 inch of water. If you have 10 inches of man-made snow, that's the equivalent of 6 inches of water. So it's much denser, and it creates its own sort of glacier effect that allows it to last through the season and be ground up again each time it melts and refreezes. It needs to be below about 25 degrees though, with low humidity, to effectively make good snow. So we have to wait for the weather to get below about 25, and we'd like 18 degrees as a better number. The goal is to make snow in December for the season and have a snow depth on the trails of 1.5 to 2 feet uniformly over the whole system. It's not easy to really get it exactly the way you want it, but we just do the best you can and then patch it up along the way as best we can to provide that 1.5 to 2 feet of snow base. The system is designed to handle 7 SMI snow guns running at once, using up to 400 gallons per minute. And the man-made snow, once is made into whales out on the trail, it sets for several days before being spread. It took 3.8 million gallons of water to cover the 2.4 kilometers of trail last season. Rich Brusenek is the snowmaking guru. He runs the snowmaking operation for us at the moment. He organizes the volunteers. He gets everything set up for us in the fall. He tests the snow guns. He makes sure that they're properly oiled and lubricated and all the mice are out of them and everything like that. He goes out and makes sure the trail is ready to go, and make sure that when we're ready to go, we got all the hoses and everything we need to do this. So when he uses this map to organize or to direct the snowmaking operations. This tells all sorts of important information like where the trails are, where the guns are, where the hydrants and the pedestals are, exit points where you can take the guns off the trail after you've made snow, because you don't want to get them stuck in a pile of snow. Basically what happens is the general strategy is to make snow, initial snow is made in this sort of core area right by summer stage. We call this a summer stage area. So you make it up, tail end a little bit this way, a little bit down that way, a little bit down that way to get started, because then that allows the remainder of the trail system to remain open to hikers. And then eventually you try and close out this loop here. So you have your first loop open. Then we make snow around this loop to get this loop open. Then this loop here to get this loop open. And then finally, finish up by finishing the woods loop, the in the woods loop, so that now you have 2.4 kilometers. Last year, the full system was that we opened in relatively early December and had the full system open by early January. It takes many hours to do this work. It is often done at night and during cold and windy weather. As I said, the process involves making man-made snow whales along the trail system. Here's some good whales here in the woods. They're about 4 feet tall. Some whales that were early on, they're a little bit too big, I would say. These whales were definitely out of control. This is a snowmaker looking at it, said, what the heck? You guys let those guns run in the same place all night long? And those are very, very hard then for the Snowcat to push around. You know, that's a mountain of snow, and made for a very dense, very deep trail, but not the way we try to operate anymore. We're trying to operate more like it shows up here in the left-hand corner, with a 4 foot or so tall linear whale, as opposed to these giant mounds of snow. The volunteers are really the backbone of the operation. They have to sign up for 4-hour shifts that can go on throughout the day. They come on out usually 2 at a time. They lay out the hoses to connect up the guns and plug them into the pedestals, let them run until we build the proper whales, and then shut them down, move them to the next location, or shut them down, drain the hoses. You can't leave the hoses sitting out there full of water. They just freeze up solid, and then you're stuck with a bunch of frozen stuff, and then pack it up. So it's a complicated operation. A little bit about snowmaking. What pays for this operation is volunteers, I should say donors from people who want to have this happen. And so snowmaking is not free. It costs, to get to where we are right now, it costs about $726,000 to develop, operate, and maintain the snowmaking system from 2006 to 2019. And major expenses in 2020 were the Snowcat and the storage building, which have cost about $310,000. So you can do the math there. That's over $1 million. All right, looking at a little bit of the snowmaking expense categories. $500,000 in the actual capital items that are out there, the pipe, the wire, the pedestals, hydrants, and everything else is all, this is all before the Snowcat, before 2020. Operations, which involve basically the electric power, diesel fuel to run the system. Fundraising at $22,000 is 3% of the total expense. We think that's a pretty good number, that we're only spending 3% of our total expenditures on fundraising. But this one here has always been sort of a problem to us, this $103,000 on maintenance, almost all of which is spent maintaining the old Snowcats. So we knew that we needed to do something about that. So funding wise, just to give you a perspective here, Snowmaking is financed primarily by donations with several grants from the DNR over the life of the project. Total income up to 2019 was about $800,000. Our estimated income for fiscal 2019 to 2020, and that was to October of 2020, about $160,000. I would tell you that this number is somewhat understated, but we still always could use more money. You can see how fundraising has gone over the years. Since 2006, we got off to a good start. It went down a bit over 2009, 2010, 2011, steadied out a bit, and has been rising ever since. This is an average over that whole period. If you looked at 160,000 on this graph, it would be somewhere up here. And I really do think it's more than that. So to take the next step, we noted that the primary operating mode for snowmaking system changed in 2018 with execution of the land use agreement that put more responsibility on the Friends of Lapham Peak to operate, maintain, and construct the system. Snowmaking operations are now really led by snowmaking volunteers with assistance from DNR, as opposed to the other way around where it was for the first 10 years or so. The old LMC Snowcat was very unreliable and expensive to maintain. $100,000 worth of repair work on it over its lifetime, and a replacement was needed because it was breaking down all the time. And if you couldn't groom out the man-made snow, you didn't have anything. So one of the reasons why it broke down so often was that it was stored outside, and it was the biggest mouse house you've ever seen. The rodents would be in there. They'd eat the wiring. They'd eat the hydraulic hoses. Other things were just deteriorated over time. The machine was 40 years old, and we needed a reliable. We needed we needed a building, a suitable storage building if we were going to get a new machine. We're not going to be sticking it outside. So first, a building, winter recreation storage building. Here's a general concept of it. Take note of what it shows here. It has a main entrance door for the Snowcat itself. It has a man and woman door for the Snowcat operators. It has some nice windows shown on it, and then these doors in the back. Here's another one on the other side are for the gator to bring in the SNOWGUNS to thaw out or to store during the winter. So a nice rendering that we used to sell the project to DNR. The building itself has been built by the Friends and donated to and will be donated to DNR. It will house a Snowcat, SNOWGUNS, and DNR grooming equipment. It is 40 feet wide by 42 feet long. Contractors and volunteers did the work on this, and it was probably 1,000 hours of volunteers. The cost of the building, I've said here, is about $65,000. It's more than that because we went further than we anticipated. In the initial project, we planned to add heat and other features in the future, and we just gone ahead and put them all in right now. So I'd say that building cost is closer to $75,000. But DNR has provided us a grant for $20,000 to help pay for the building. The building is located, well, it's located right here, and it gives it easy access to the snowmaking trails out this way. That's how the machine itself would come in and out to do the grooming and ease. Operators, snowmaking volunteers would access it from the main park road through a little driveway here, and there's easy access then to the maintenance building for any other needs. There is no water supply or bathrooms at this building, I would note. But anyway, it starts out with a driveway. So construction work began back in August. First things we did were prep the site and put in a new driveway coming off the main park road with a culvert to address the water kind of stuff. Then a pad was set for the building. It would be a concrete base for the garage itself. These are some nice pictures of the gravel being set for concrete pour, and there's the reinforcing bars in the 5-inch concrete slab. This line right here that you see on the picture, this is a floor drain in the floor of the winter recreation storage building that is designed to capture water that melts off the Snowcat or SNOWGUNS or Gators or anything else that's in there, because otherwise that water would just stand on the floor or go to the edges and lock up the doors and things like that. So we wanted to capture that water and drain it out of the building. Now that sounds pretty simple, but it's much more complicated. I'll show you why in a minute. So concrete pour was done. The concrete trucks, it took 5 full trucks, 4.5 full trucks of concrete to pour the floor. The trucks poured the floor in less than about 3 hours. And then we had a contractor do this work, and we could see here's the finished slab. They cut the joints in it so that it would crack in the right places. And then insulation was placed around the base of it to keep it from any kind of frost heave occurring. Then once that base had set, once the concrete had set, the building framing and roof trusses were installed. We picked up the materials after much study. The materials came from Blifford lumber, and as did the trusses. Rich Marusinek really arranged for the whole. I would say, you see, first Bruce Whitehaven did the design through Whitehaven Architects, and then Rich procured all the materials for the construction. Then Steve Joda Construction actually did the construction of the building, and that was Steve and all the volunteers that he was able to coordinate and do the work. Going a little further here, we found out, well, you couldn't just have that floor drain discharged to the ground, because you could have oil or grease coming off the machine. So we had to put in the holding tank that would capture the water from the floor drain. Here's the holding tank being installed. This is the official John McCarthy holding tank. How's that? We have you have your park benches and things like that out there, and the Lupo pond. Well, I'm a sanitary engineer, environmental engineer, so I get to have the holding tank. We have the nearly completed building here with a very nice siding put on it. It's a LP siding, which is a compressed fiberboard material, and then asphalt shingles. And then finally, sort of a look at the completed side of it here. If you recall, here's a beautiful door. Jeff Lose from Lose and Associates donated the door. Beetle put a nice rock as a stoop for it here. The door is green. The overhead doors came from Heartland Overhead Doors through Jim Bostrom, but they're not green, which was in the picture, in case you remember that. Anyway, the building is nearly done. What it's waiting for is ventilation equipment that needs to be installed to keep it vented in accordance with state codes, and that stuff was supposed to arrive yesterday. It didn't. It was supposed to arrive today. It didn't. It's supposed to arrive tomorrow. I'm sure it's going to, and we're going to get it out there and get it installed so we can finish off the building walls. And these little pipe bollards here sitting on the ground, we installed last week. So that's to keep the Snowcat from running into the walls of the building. I'll be painting those tomorrow. Inside the building, we can see that it has a nice frame look, and we also went ahead and put in the heat right away. So there are 2 ceiling mounted heating units that are mounted by propane, and there's a propane tank in the back of the building. I included this picture here. You can see inside of a door here, but these rubber mats, conveyor belts is what they are, used conveyor belts that we acquired. Rich Marusick made arrangements for it, and they're set on the concrete floor, so the Snowcat, which has treads on them, can sit on those mats and not grind up the concrete floor. All right, the Winter Recreation Storage Building volunteers. I have a list of 30 people who donated their time and effort to helping us install the building, put in over 1,000 hours of volunteer help to make sure that the building got construction and got construction well. And we owe them a great debt of thanks. Our list of the contractors, donators of labor and materials are highlighted in yellow, but our designers, Whitehaven Architects, did the original building designs. Plunker Racers provided the graphics. Richard Pierce worked with Bruce at Whitehaven to do the structural, and Grave provided the civil engineering and some assistance on the mechanical and electrical. Our main contractor, Joda Construction, has been supported by Great Lakes Concrete, who did the slab. Current Electric is doing the building electrical for us, and Kruger Mechanical is doing the heating. And all of these people here supplied the various materials that we needed to do the work, some of which they donated parts of, some of which they donated the entire thing. This is a tremendous community effort. So the building is ready now for Snowcat. And what do we need? We need a new Snowcat. The Snowcat's functions are spread the man-made snow whales, rejuvenate the trail surface after thaw, rain, freeze events, which happen like, you know, dozens of times during a season, it seems like, or at least a dozen times anyway. And then also new for this year, set classic tracks. So the pictures we have, here's the original Snowcat. And then our LMC, which we have for many years, spreading snow, and a picture of the new Piston Bully 100. So the 40-year-old LMC Snowcat, it came to us from Cascade Mountain. If I could, there's the Cascade Mountain symbol right there on it. And it had a tiller, but it had no track setting ability. So it was really a downhill machine. It was parked over by the, usually parked over by the maintenance building. Here it is on a trailer being hauled out on November 4th to be taken to Nub's Knob in northern Michigan, where we sold it for it. Now, part of the problems was that the mice tend to live in this thing. And so we sent the mice along with it to Nub's Knob. We hope that they enjoy their new home up in northern Michigan. The old Snowcat was sold by DNR. Now the Snowcat was owned by DNR because we gave it to them because we're such generous guys. That would be the Friends of Lapham Peak. And it was sold, the original Snowcat cost $17,000. We sold it for $18,000 at auction. And so we made $1,000, except we paid $100,000 over the years to repair it. That $18,000 though, DNR is going to use to buy a new tracked gator, funded anyway, the parts of it anyway. They're going to pay a little money themselves. Here's how they generally groom the trails right now, is with these tracked gators. And the problem is that the transmissions on these things are just not well suited to snowmaking operations, and they burn out. If you recall, last year, both gators were down at one point. And even when they brought them back, they couldn't do the hills up in the upper loops. So this new gator, which has all been picked out and should be ready to go, is designed specifically for this purpose. So not only do we have a new Snowcat coming, but we're going to have a new gator coming too. We are going to have the greatest grooming that Southeast Wisconsin has ever seen. All right, the new Snowcat, Piston Bully 104F Nordic, 2020 model, 253 horsepower, 3.1 meters wide. That's a little over 10 feet, by the way. And that's the plow and the tiller. It's the latest model tiller. It's going to till the dickens out of that snow. Dual track setters on a manual working bar, which means that we can change the width of them, not as we go, but beforehand. And then an optional snow cutter for a demonstration in 2020, 2021. Well, that would be this coming year. So the cost of this machine, $250,000. If that sounds like a lot of money, if you went and had this quoted to you, it would be more like $280,000. So we worked hard to get the cost down and to work with Piston Bully to cut us a deal, so to speak. The machine itself was on a when we made the deal back in April, after much consideration, it was on a machine. It was on a boat coming from Germany with 29 brother Piston Bullies. or sister piston bullies, as the case may be, and where it came from Germany down through the Panama Canal and then up to somewhere in California where they unloaded them and then took them to Las Vegas. And then from Las Vegas, they did some assembly, and then they took them to Jordan, Minnesota, where they did some more assembly. And then finally, they delivered it to us on November 4th. And here's the machine arriving at the park on November 4th. And here's like our view from the front of it. Here is a picture of Ann Randall, snowmaking chairperson, delivering a check for $200,000 to the piston bully guy upon delivery of the machine. So so that paid for it. You can see a nice shot here of the blade in front and the tracks and stuff. The cab, which is able to sit two people. So looking at it from the back, you can see that it has the state-of-the-art tiller system. All this apparatus does is it drops down onto the snow itself. If you look underneath it, though, you can see this kind of toothy thing that spins around and chops up ice and the frozen surface, grinds it up into a nice fine powder, which is then smoothed out by this matte part here, creating a magnificent surface for cross-country skiing, both skate and stride. And then a dual track setter system that is going to set tracks. Here's some that were done by the demo. Tracks like we have never seen in Lapham Peak or in Southeast Wisconsin. So it's going to become a strider's paradise like we've never known around here. All right. So can the new Snowcat be used off the man-made snow trails, you might ask? Well, yes, but it depends on several factors. First, you got to get a whole bunch of natural snow. Depth and density of the natural snow is what matters. So it really needs to be at least 6 inches or maybe more of heavy wet snow to set the base necessary for the piston bully. Otherwise, the treads will just grind right down into the ground, and that would be bad, as you might imagine. 6 inches of lake effect snow, no, that would never do. That's way too fluffy kind of stuff. You got to have some heavy water in there to use this machine on it. But every once in a while, we do get snows like that, and so we did it during the demo period last year, so it can be done. Also, improvements are needed to the trail surface and the alignment of the trail. There are too many tight corners or off camber sections, places where there are gullies and stuff that have to be fixed up before we really can take the machine out of those. But that work is being done. If you've been out to the park, you will note that there have been some changes made. Erosion bars have been removed off of 2-tier, and corners have been smoothed out on other parts of the lighted loop. So we are preparing for being able to use the machine on all the lighted loop and possibly the entire system. So what's needed to keep snowmaking going strong? Well, donations. This year and in future years, the Snowcat, to operate the system, we still have to finish paying for the Snowcat. We have to operate the system and for the future expansions. We also need volunteers. This is a volunteer run operation. We need help with planning, constructing, and operating the system and maintaining the trails. We need volunteers for the snowmaking committee. We need snowmakers themselves. We need Snowcat operators, a very specialized task. We don't just let anybody drive the thing. They won't let me drive it yet. So, and then trail restoration work during the spring, summer, and fall to make sure that those trails are ready if we want to bring the Snowcat out on the rest of the trail system. Please contact Ann Randall to volunteer for any of these important tasks. So send your donations, Friends of Lapham Peak. Here's our address here. Make checks payable to Lapham Peak Friends. Snowmaking, be sure to reference snowmaking, or you may donate online via the website. And for more information, see Lapham Peak Snowmaking or email Lapham Peak Snowmaking at Gmail. Friends of Lapham Peak is a Wisconsin nonprofit corporation and a federal 501c3 public charity. So finally, I want to say thank you to all who have helped us make snowmaking at Lapham Peak such a success. That includes the Friends of Lapham Peak, the board of the Friends of Lapham Peak, especially Louise, who is the chairman of is our president, who has put up with us for the last 14 years as we've worked on this project to get it to the point that it's at, and the rest of the board members, the treasurers and secretaries, and Rita and Ann and Carl Tim for helping us work through all the decisions necessary to get the system going. Special thank you to Wisconsin DNR. Ann Corman has been so involved and so supportive of our efforts, and our new supervisor in the park, Colton Kelly, just a tremendous addition to the park, has really been very helpful to us to make this project a success. The guys out there and the girls out there, Jay and Brian and Sarah, all of them have really done a great job to work with us. It's a partnership that we work very hard to sustain because it's been very successful. Our volunteers are our lifeblood, and I would like to especially recognize Keith Edelmeyer, Beetle, as our lead Snowcat operator and heavy equipment operator for all phases, and also Rich Marusinek, who leads our snowmaking operations and also really led the construction of the building. Those guys have been supermen as far as the snowmaking project goes. How could I forget to recognize our donors? We have had many people come forward over the years and in the last year especially to make this project possible. It would go nowhere without their support. We try to do the best we can to recognize them. I really just can't go through a list of them for you today, but to say that without them, we'd be nowhere. And then the ski clubs, who have been very supportive of us, particularly the Lapham Peak Ski Club, who has donated substantial amounts over the last several years to support the project, and to the Milwaukee Nordic Ski Club, who has donated to us over the lifetime of the project. And then a more recent addition has been our corporate sponsors, who have been brought on by Charlie Ritter and Will Edwards to give the project a more sustainable, supportable feel, and provide additional donations as we go forward. So with that, I will ask if you have any questions. The best way to do it would be by submitting them to the chat and then have Paul read those to me, because I can't see the chat as long as I have the presentation up here. Or I guess you can just wing it and ask, and we'll take it from there. So take it away.
Okay, so Ann Dursey says, nice job, John. Question, approximately what percentage of funds raised to date is from public sources such as the DNR and others?
I would say that we've received grants from the DNR in support of the project of $60,000 to $80,000 or so. So if you wanted to, you would have to do the math percentage wise. That sounds like about 8% to me would be how I figure that. They are also supporting us in other ways in terms of labor, staff labor, in terms of both snowmaking and in terms of grooming for the project, and in terms of materials and equipment too. So we've been pushing for more for many years and tried many different ways, but let's just say that's where we are right now.
Is the new power piston bully currently sitting outside now collecting mice, or is it in a new building?
I wish I brought that picture up. I could show you a picture of it sitting in the building. It is in the building. It is in the building.
Tell us about the concrete holding tank installation and how much it weighs.
The holding tank weighs about 7,500 pounds. It was purchased from a company called Crest Precast Concrete Products out of Barneveld, Wisconsin. We talked to the Barneveld guy, the guy who brought it, about the famous Barneveld tornado a bit. It came on a truck which had a special crane that lifted it right into place, into a hole that we had constructed for it at just the right elevation and size to hook up the pipe to it.
Okay, does anyone else have any?
I'll get another factor too about it. It's 800 gallons is its holding capacity. We estimated that, and you could go ahead and try and do this, estimated that how much water would melt off the Snowcat, melt off the SNOWGUNS, melt off the grooming equipment on a year's basis. And a little bit by here and there, I figured that we were going to get about 400 gallons per year off melting off the various equipment. And so that you would probably empty the tank on a yearly basis. There are other holding tanks at the park. Up at the maintenance building, there's a holding tank for their floor drain up there, for example. So to empty the tank costs about $150. Water is pumped out of it and would be taken to a wastewater treatment plant. This water is going to be very clean though, since it's just basically melted snow. So Ann's wondering if the new power piston bully could be named in memory of Paul Sandgren, since he was one of the instigators of this whole endeavor. Well, I don't know how you name it after somebody, to tell you the truth. It's called a piston bully. So, and we've named a whole bunch of other stuff for Paul, to tell you the truth too. So. And now Joanne asks, you mentioned the use of 3.8 million gallons of water this past season. Sounds like a lot, but contrast that with how much is used by a golf course in the summer.
Yeah.
Well, that's a very good question. And if you look at Waukesha County golf courses during the summertime, they use 3.3 million gallons per day. So figure that over the whole summer season, if you would. And why would I know such a silly statistic? Well, we studied this matter back in 2008 or 2009 when we were when DNR was still willing to go through permitting at Waukesha County. So. Okay, it sounds like that's. And Ann Rendell's saying something here. Keep going, Ann.
How about if I just talk? Is that easier? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to bring up that the very first donation, and you guys have probably heard me say this before, but the very first donation that came in for snowmaking came from the Nordic Ski Club of Milwaukee. It was for $1,000. It was dated in July of 2005, and it was a really effective jumpstart to the process.